All right, hi guys, good afternoon. So yes, I hope you're able to hear me, see me, and also see the screen. And I think we'll directly, jump into the content and get started. A quick couple of updates before we actually go to the content. Primarily the fact that the repository has been updated. That's the only major update that I have for now, right? So I've added the revision session code from the past two sessions. And I've also added the project code that we created in the final session. If you remember, in the last day of the core concepts discussion, we created a final project. So that code is also here. There's a front end folder and a back end folder. So you can check that out. And the revision session code snippets have also been added. In addition to this, I've also added one more deployment video here, which is the Express.js deployment. Now, this is not mandatory for you to do, but still, in case if you're looking at deploying that application as well, so deploying both front end as well as the back end. So I've explained that one in this video so that you get a working URL or an API endpoint, which you can then use in your front end. So this completes the list of all the videos that I will be uploading specifically for you guys. So make sure you check these out when you start working on the code so that they will help you out to set things up and work on these concepts, right? So that's the update on the repository front. Again, I've added the link for the team details here as well. So you can check out the team details, which team you belong to, what is your project title, all that can be found out from this particular link, right? And then these are a few reference videos. This is the link to the channel where everything is, and these are links to individual videos as well, right? The abstract sample is also available here along with a sample project report that's in the session 10 folder. And then the submission guidelines, the Netlify deployment URL, recording links, all of these things are available right in the repository itself. So this is the major update that I have. I've added everything over there that we have discussed so far. Now, coming to the content for the day or coming to the major agenda for the day, we are going to continue with our CSS discussion, right? So again, so Uday, it is not possible that a project cannot have backend. I've been saying this every day. Every project abstract or every project topic that has been shared with you will contain a front end, it will contain a backend, and it will contain a database. There has to be these three things, and every topic will have it. There is no project topic. I have gone through all the project topics. There is no project topic which will not have a backend. It is not possible. So front end, backend, database, these are three requirements for every single project topic that has been given to you. So there is no way that your project will not contain a backend. It's simply not possible. Coming to the question of creating a schema that I can answer. So basically in the MongoDB sessions, we have discussed this in detail, right? I've also covered that in the MongoDB video. So if you see the MongoDB reference, here also I've explained where the schema is, right? Or how to create the schema itself. Let me just show that to you.
Growing a stud.
So if you see these parts here, the highlights of the video here, I have written a specific section over there creating a schema, right? So here I've explained to you what a schema is. I've explained how this works, and I've already explained how to create it as well. You can also find the code as well. So if you just go to the final code from this repository that I have attached to the video, that over here you will find a sample schema code as well. So we have to import the schema from this mongoose.schema, right? And this is how we can create it. So again, a sample schema code, which is what you have to submit, the schema code that is also available. And I've also explained to you what the schema is and all of that in this part of the video, right? So this entire 3-4 minute discussion is on that itself. So again, you can just click on this part, creating a schema. I've explained this in detail. So if you're confused how to create the DB schema, this is the section you can refer to. Again, this is available in the MongoDB video. Okay. We have also covered this in our MongoDB session. So that was, I think, session 21. If you go back to your session 21 or 22, one of those two, you will be able to find the schema discussion over there as well. So let me just check that out as well. Right. So in our setting, I think, yes, in session 21 in the MongoDB session, you can find it. And the code will also be available in session 21 in full stack CRUD. It should also be there in MongoDB fundamentals. if you notice that session in index.js, you will find a similar schema code. You can see right here, order schema, right? So we have imported schema from Mongoose and we have also it over here. So you have the schema reference available in two places. It is in session 21 recording, or it is in that dedicated MongoDB video. I suggest you watch the dedicated video. It will be better to understand. So that's available in MongoDB reference. I hope that answers the question about how to create the schema. This will be a JavaScript file that you can submit. It can also be a text file if you want to submit a text or a PDF, that will also work, because anyway in your code you have to create the schema as well, right? And make sure you create the schema for all things. So for example, if your project is an e-commerce project, for example, so you will have a user schema, you will have a product schema, you will have an order schema, you will have a, let's say, a transaction or a payment schema. So whatever you are developing, accordingly, you will have to create schema for all of them, right? I think Monday would be ideal for submitting the schema. So try to submit the schema by Monday, right? So Monday, I think is the is 5th, so 6th, 7th, 8th of April, right? So I think that will be the schema deadline. And then we can move to the next part. It's actually pretty simple. It's not very difficult. All we have to do in the schema, right, is that we have to basically. So yes, for people who are asking what is a schema, is basically a declaration of all the different values that we are going to track for our data, right? So if I show you a quick example, if you just see over here on the screen, right? So a schema, as you can see here, it is basically a list of all the different values or all the different properties that a particular data item is going to have, right? For example, here we have the order. So for each order, we have the total price of the order. For each order, we have username. So this is the customer who has placed the order. For each order, we have the order date. This is the date at which the order was placed, right? So naturally, you will have more values in a real world setup. This was just a sample, right? So for Bharat Nenu from the YouTube live, I hope you have now understood what a schema is, right? It is basically a declaration of all the different values that a particular entity or a particular object is going to have, right? So this is how we declare a schema. And again, you have to make it for all entities, like I said. So again, if you're booking a movie, if you're making a ticket booking platform, for example, so there will be again a user schema, ticket schema, a movie schema, etc. Whatever data we are working with, all those data entities must be written as a schema first. Because in MongoDB, first you have to create a schema. Then on the basis of that schema, we can create a model and then we can actually write the code. So no, they are two different things. This is Kanike Chandana from Zoom chat. DB schema and DB code are different. DB schema is a part of the DB code, but schema is not the only thing, right? In the DB code, we also have the model. We also have code to perform insertion, deletion, updation, searching, all of that. So DB code will involve everything. It will include your CRUD operations along with the schema. A schema will simply involve the schema, right? So yes, Ganeshwari, we are using MERN Stack, right? So MongoDB is the database that we have to use. So obviously your schema will be created with MongoDB code itself. So again, Bharat, if you don't understand what a schema is, please watch the recording of the MongoDB session. I've explained it in detail over there. Basically, it is a list of all the different values that we are going to store in the database. Right? For example, for order, we are storing total price of the order, the user who has placed the order, the date at which the order was placed. So in a similar way, for a user, we will have username, password, email, address, etc. All of that. So that's going to be your setup. So depending on what you are working with, you will create a schema for all entities in your project. So no, Ganesh, I will get that modified. We are not using MySQL. We are using MongoDB. So I will make that. I will ask them to make that change. That should be fine. You are going to use MongoDB only because it is MERN Stack project. So we will not be using SQL because we have not covered SQL in our training. So we will use MongoDB only. I'll ask the team to make that change in the details on the hackathon. That's fine. How to submit? So again, I am not really sure. I think DB schema is a part of the same link where you have to submit your abstract. So please go over there. You will upload a document which will contain your schema code. So you can either upload a JavaScript file or a text file or a Word doc or a PDF. Any file is fine. actually, because anyway, in the final code that you share on GitHub, you will have to use that schema anyway. So you can create it and submit either as a JavaScript file or any other file. Again, Chandana, for the DB code, you have to create the backend. So that will be available to you once you write the backend as well. It will not be available immediately because again, if you see our code that I have shared with you also, the rest of it is the backend code. For example, this one, right? The post method, the get method, all of that will be your backend code, right? Again, this I have explained in detail in the Express.js video, right? In the Express.js reference here. It is also there in the MongoDB reference. So if I just show this to you once again, right, let me just open the repository. The best way to capture attention, get more followers and drive more. So if you see here in the MongoDB video, that reference that I have, this entire thing is your DB code, right? So the creation of a new task, the getting of all tasks, this is fetch, right? So CRUD, CRUD, create, read, update, delete. So creation of a new task, reading of all the tasks, updating a task, deleting a task. This is your DB code, right? So again, the schema will be a part of the DB code. It will be the first step. First, we create a schema, then we create a model, and then we perform the database operations. We have discussed all of this in the MongoDB sessions. If you have not attended them, please watch the recording. And again, we will do the recap as well. So once we reach the revision session, once we reach that topic in the revision sessions, we'll talk about it there as well. But again, it is available in the video. It is also available in the repository. You can see a sample code for all four operations is available. This is for creation. This is for reading. And this is for insertion and updation and deletion. So all code is available for your reference. Again, it is from the same repository. Everything is there in the same repository. So just keep an eye out on the repository. You can just find everything that you want over there itself, right? So I hope that answers all the questions that are there as of now. And with that, we can, I think, move to the topic. Salim, I think the voice is fine. I have checked it on my end. Please check your video microphone settings. Maybe increase the volume, put on a earphone. But I think the voice is fine. I've checked it on the YouTube live stream. It is working fine. Project submission date. So Bharat, this is from the YouTube live. Project submission is due by the end of April. So April end, ideally 30th of April is the last date for the project submission. So yes, the end of April is when we are expecting the projects. So these repositories are connected to the videos themselves. This is 218x5a, whoever you are. The code that I just showed you, it is available in the video itself. So if you just go to the video, the MongoDB reference video, in the video description, you will find the repository link. So there is the starter code and the final code. So it is available over there. You can also find a similar code in our repository also. So if you just go to the correct place, I think in the full stack project, it should be available. So in this session, full stack CRUD, if you go over here, right, and then you go to the backend and to the index file, you can see the code is here also. This is just spread out. So we have a separate models file for the model code. We have a separate schema file for the schema code. So the code is available in both repositories. Either way, you should get access to it. But yes, whatever I have covered in the video, I have made sure that the corresponding code for that video is available in the video description, right? So even if you check the React video, so then in the description, I have given the link to the code as well, the starter code and the final code, right? Similarly, for Express video also, I have given a repository where I've written the starter code and the final. So you can see the final code is also connected here. Right. So that is why I am recommending you, and I'm mentioning this in every session since the day I started uploading the videos, is to please watch these videos at least once before you start working on the logic. So if you're worried about the DB schema or if you're working on the DB schema, please watch the MongoDB reference. Over here, you will find description of what a schema is, how to create it, and you can find the corresponding code in the repository as well. Right. But obviously, please don't copy paste my code because it will not be relevant to your project. So please make sure that you customize or modify the code accordingly for your projects, right? And then you submit that. I have tried to give you everything from my side. I've been sharing everything since day one, all the PPTs, all the code we have written in the session. I've made additional videos for you guys. So I hope this is helping you, and I hope you will make use of that material which has been prepared just for you. So yes, you can definitely check those videos out. All of them are available in the repository itself, right? So as soon as you open the repository, just scroll down and you will find all the videos connected or linked directly over here. So yes, that's the update on that front. You can, Uday, you can definitely use refer to ChatGPT. It sometimes does not give you the correct code. You can definitely refer, but make sure you test it. So copy the code if you get it from there. Make sure you run it, test it, and then submit it. Don't submit incomplete code or code which is not working. So make sure you test it out in an Express application and then you upload it, right? So that way you will be sure that you've uploaded the correct code. Right. Yes, Sandeep, I'll let you know about that by the end of the session. I've raised this query with the team regarding what is to be written in the program book. Is it regarding the project or the sessions? I'll let you know. I'll find it out by the end of the session. Right. Great. So now let's quickly come back to our revision aspects here. And again, most of these sessions are meant for answering your questions, less of the topic coverage, because anyway, we have covered these topics already. But still, I'll quickly walk you through two, three important topics in CSS today, right? The first one is the box model that we have in CSS. And here we have four terms that we use. The box model basically is an approach or is a way of or is the way in which CSS treats HTML elements, right? So every HTML element, no matter what element it is treated in a specific way by CSS, which is as a box. So CSS treats every single HTML element as a box, no matter which element it is. It could be a text element, it could be a list item, it could be a media element, it could be a form field, a table data element, any HTML element, a head, body, whatever it is. Every single HTML element is treated like a box by CSS, right? That is why we call it the CSS box model. Now, why is this? Well, this is because, or this has been done by CSS in order to give us some properties or some control over what to display and how the display will be, right? So for example, what element should come next to each other, how much space should the element take, can we create a border for the element, how much space can we have within the element, how much space can we have outside the element. All of these properties can be set using the box model, right? So again, we have four major properties here. The first, of course, is the content itself. So this is the text, image, table, row, whatever it is, HTML part, that is the content. Then we have the padding, which is outside the content or which wraps the content. Then the wrapping the padding is the border, and then wrapping the border is the margin, or outside of the border is the margin. So again, padding is the space within the element and margin is the space outside of the element. Right? So if I give you a quick example of this, let us go ahead and create an HTML file and I'll use the shortcut. I'll also create a CSS file. We have already discussed external CSS yesterday, so I'll not repeat that. But yes, we are definitely using CSS here. Now, what do we want to do here? Well, we have to go ahead and create some piece of text. For example, let's say this is a heading, right? And then let's try to apply the box model properties on this H1. So we can have the H1, the element selector, tag selector, whatever you want to call it. And then we can specify, first of all, color. Right? So if I specify the color as royal blue, for example, then this would be styling the content of our box model. Right? So if we look at the box model diagram here, then this is the content part of it. So all the text decoration styles, the color of the text, all of that text things like changing the font size, all of that is a part of the text styling or the content. Again, in the case of media, it could be height, width, making the borders rounded, all of those things. Border is a separate story. But yes, all the media, right? All of those things are your content. So that's your content styling. Once the content styling is done, right? Once the content styling is done, then we move to the next bit, which is the padding. Now, padding is the space between the content or within the content inside the border. So first, let us set the border. Okay, let me show you the padding first. So let me put a background color of say pink, right? So this pink that you see on the screen now, this is the padding, right? This is the space which the entire element is occupying. And as you can see, since the content is left aligned and it is a block level element, it takes up the entire row. So this entire pink space that we see on the screen right now, this is the padding. or rather this space is the extra space within the content. Now, if you want to increase or decrease this space, then we can use the padding, right? If I set the padding to 20 pixels, then you can see the space gets increased. This 20 pixels means 20 pixels on all four sides, right? That's left. So 20 pixels on the left, 20 pixels on the top, 20 pixels on the right, and 20 pixels on the bottom. That's the way, left, top, right, bottom. That's how we specify. If we specify two values, let's say 20 pixels and 50 pixels, then the first value is for the left and the right, and the second value is for the top and the bottom. So again, here 20 pixels applies to top and bottom, and then 50 pixels applies to left and the right. So the first value is for the top and the bottom, the second value is for the left and the right. If we specify three things, for example, then again there is a particular pattern. So the first value, as you can see, is the top, and then we have this is the top value, and then this is the left and the right, and this is the bottom. So there are different ways in which this works. And then if you specify all four, let's go for 200 pixels. Then again, we start from left, top, right, bottom. So 200 pixels, rather 20 pixels is applied to the top. Then 50 pixels is applied to the right hand side. 100 pixels is applied to the bottom, and 200 is applied to the left. So we got top, right, bottom, left. That's the clock. That's how it moves, right? But then again, typically we don't have four individual values. We usually go for two values. So the first value is for top and bottom. The second value is for the left and right. This is the format we generally follow. If you want a consistent style on all four sides, we just put a single value. This means 50 pixels on all four. Right? So that's the padding. It is the space between the content and the border. Now, the next thing is the border. Right. So let's put 2 pixels, solid black, solid red. Go for red, no problem. Right. So this red border that shows up now, this is coming from that border property. And border is actually a shortcut where we can write multiple styles together. All of these can individually be written as well. For example, you can say border weight or border width 4 pixels. Right. Then we can say border style. Let's say, let's put dotted, for example. Then we can have border color, right? This can be, let's say, black, right? And if I just comment this out, the border will still show up. As you can see, this is a black dotted border, which is 4 pixels in thickness, basically, right? But then again, this is very tedious, right? It's three different lines of code. So we can actually combine that in a single line in the border shorthand. So we call it a shorthand, which is basically multiple styles put together. And they have to be written, again, the order, it can be interchanged. HTML is smart enough to figure it out. But usually we do follow the convention. So that's width, style, and color. You can see I wrote it in the same way at the top also. Width, style, and color. This is the convention that we follow. There are other things as well that we can change. For example, border radius can also be changed, right? So we can change it to, let's say, 10 pixels, and that will make it rounded, as you can see on the corners. If you see here, right, there is a rounded border now in the corner. So that makes it border radius of 10 pixels, right? So again, so on and so on. There are different things that we can definitely mention or specify over there, right? So this is how the whole setup is when it comes to the border. Again, we specify three major things, right? We specify the thickness, the style of the border, and the color. Now, this color can be any color. So any hexadecimal, like hex color code, PB value, HSL value, any normal value that CSS supports, any color that CSS supports, we can put that over here. It will be fine, right? At the same time, what we can also specify are different styles. So we have solid, dashed, dotted. We have several styles. We also have something called double. So this is, as you can see, two curves, two borders. And there's also something called ridge, I think, which is this 3D looking thing, right? So it might not be very obvious. Let me increase the size, I think. And yes, now you can see this ridge, right? So on the corners, you can see it's a 3D looking thing. If you notice, 1 second. So if you, yes, if you notice over here, right, this part, this corner of the border, then that will tell you that it basically tries to replicate or mimic the 3D thing. So this part and this corner. And again, you can see here also there are two depths of color, a darker shade and a lighter shade. So that's basically what your border is, right? Or border, basically ridge border is. It gives you this 3D looking thing, right? But anyway, the point is we can specify several different properties for the border, and that is how it works. Now, technically, you can also put a specific pattern in the border if you want to. So it's called border image. right? I am not sure if there is a dedicated style for this. Yes, you can see there is something called border image. So this border image basically is where we can use something like a icon. So if you want a custom border, you can create a generic icon and that icon can be used to create the entire border. I will not use it, but it is possible. In a lot of places, you might have seen some custom border. So that is how they are created with border images. So it's basically an image that is repeated as a border. Basically, that is what a border image is. Done. So this is the border, and that brings us to the final part, which is the margin. So now margin is the space outside of the element. So in our case, it will be, you can see already there's some default margin at the top here, on the left here, right? On the right hand side also, there is some default margin. How can we see this? Well, we can go to our developer tools. That's right click and inspect. And then if you scroll all the way down in the CSS part, so go to the style section, and at the end we can see this. You can see I have highlighted this now, this orange looking thing. And this is the default margin that is available for each one. Body, you can select body and see the body also has a default margin. So if you see 8 pixels on all 4 sides, that's the default margin of the body. We can check it out. Right? You can see over here also margin 8 pixels. If you can expand it, it will show you it is applicable to all 4 sides. So again, this is the default margin for the body. And then if I choose H1, and then if I see the margin, this is the margin for the H1. So the output that we see together is a combined effect of both. Usually when we start writing custom CSS, we set a star at the beginning and we set margin to 0. So this is typically what we do in the beginning of a project, so that we have custom control over everything. There is no margin coming default, right? There's no default margin coming from anywhere. So we usually do that. And then whatever margin we want, we specify it within the element. So 10 pixels top and bottom, 20 pixels left and right. This is how the two values work. Again, the same way as the padding. If we just keep a single value, this will be applicable to all 4 sides. But then again, it will look different because the screen is more wider than it is tall, right? So that is why the values will differ, but it will be the same value. So if I just go back to our inspect the developer tools, and if I just hover over it, you can see this is 100 pixels on all 4 sides. It looks different on the top and bottom. It looks lesser on the sides. It looks more on the top and bottom because again, the screen is wider. So 100 pixels here are less, will take less space than at the top and bottom because the length of the screen is lesser. But either way, we can specify exactly what we want. So this is your margin, right? And this makes up the box model. So this put together makes up the box model. This is how the whole setup is. Okay, so again, we have the content styling first, then the padding. We can see the padding using the background color. So again, it is a tip or a good practice for you is that whenever you are styling any element or you want to represent it using the box model, then I recommend you specify the background color so that you can see what is going on. See the padding using that background color and then remove it if you don't need it. There are cases where we might not need the background color, but we can still use it while styling so that we can actually see what it looks like. So we understand how to structure the content better, right? So this is the box model part. Again, 4 things: content, padding, border, and margin. Right? That's what we use. Again, we usually don't work with a lot of margin, to be very honest. We use paddings. Margin we do use sometimes, but when we go with other arrangements like flexbox or grid arrangement, then we don't use these as much because anyway, padding is enough to move things around there. But yes, this was the first way to do it traditionally. And again, it is important to realize the fact that whenever we discuss these concepts, we sometimes think there is a better way to do this. Why do we do it the other way? It is because the other way came out first, right? This came out first, then Flex came out. So basically, everything that the box model does is still applicable. And then Flex made it easier for us to arrange things in a row, right? So that is what you have to understand. It was a transition. Both box model and Flex were not introduced at the same time, for example. So there is a difficult way to do it. And because of that difficulty, an easier way was figured out eventually. So that is how the whole setup is. But anyway, this is the box model and it is applicable for every single HTML element, even if it's an image or a div or a section or a header or a footer, whatever HTML tag you have, the box model works on all. Obviously, if you use a div, then the situation is different. For example, if I use a header over here, let us say, and we put H1P and a button inside of that header, for example. So let's say buy now, right? Then obviously whatever styles we apply to the header will eventually be applied to these three elements as well, right? So if you see here, the heading is getting affected by the styles, and this does not look like a part of the header as of now. But of course, if I just replace this with the header, then the styling is applicable to the entire container. And of course, the content styles are also then applied to individual elements, right? So for example, H1P and button, they get the blue color, they get the padding as well, as you can see, right? But again, the idea is that the entire container gets the margin, right? So the margin is applicable only to the container. At this point, if we go ahead and add more, let's say we add more margin top to the H1, then it will be applicable in addition to the existing style. So if I move it to 150 pixels, then you can see the in on top of the existing margin, more margin gets added to the H1. This is how it works, right? So we have to be very careful with the way we arrange things on the screen. And again, if we just choose the H1 now, you can see the margin 150. This is the H1's margin, right? And then in addition to this, of course, the padding of the header will also be applicable, right? So this padding plus the margin makes up the space that the H1 will occupy, right? So that is something we have to understand. When we use a container, then the styles should be written very carefully, keeping in mind that both styles will be applied, right? So both header padding plus the H1 margin, both of these will be applicable at the same time. So that would effectively mean that at the top, we have a margin of or a space of 170 pixels, 20 coming from this padding and 150 coming from the margin top. Similarly, on the left and the right, we will have 100 pixels and 20 on the bottom. So if you see the actual heading, you can see there's 20. So this is for the container. So there's 20 at the bottom, 100 to the left and the right, and then 170. That's margin top plus padding at the top. Right. So this is how the box model works. Again, we also initially used to, we don't do this anymore, but we also use the box model in the initial days to arrange things next to each other, right? So let's say we have two sections and we want to arrange them next to each other. So we also use the box model for this in the early days of CSS. But now, of course, we have Flex and Grid, which are much better ways to arrange things around, right? So that is the box model. That completes our discussion on the box model. The next important concept that we have to understand is something called CSS positioning. Now, in this case, the idea is very simple. We have 5 different types of positions over here. You can see 4. There is also one more called sticky. That's the 5th position. So let me explain these to you one by one. I'll take simple examples and I'll explain them to you one by one. The first position, the static position. So I will comment out all the other CSS as of now, right? So that we don't get confused with these styles. Let me actually put it over there and I just comment everything else out so that we can just focus on the positioning part, right? So now we have a header which contains H1P and button. So the default position, that is this, as you can see right here on the screen, this is nothing but the static position. So the default position of an element based on its location in the HTML document or based on where it appears in the HTML document, that is the static position, right? So for example, if I go to the styling and let's style the paragraph, and if I change its position to static, nothing will change. If I add its position as static, you will see the output, nothing has changed, right? We have not seen any change in the position simply because of the fact that static position is the default position of the element where it was actually supposed to be. So that is the static. It is the default value, which means even if we specify it or not, it doesn't really matter. The second position that we have is called absolute position. So absolute position would mean the element will be positioned exactly where we specify. So right now, if we check, then the paragraph you can see is moved out. It is no longer where it was supposed to be. It's actually moved away from its default position, right? So if I remove absolute, you can see this is the default position. Let me mark it over here. I will mark it on the screen so that we understand. And this is the default position of the paragraph, right? Now, if I go ahead and I remove that or I add the absolute position in, then you can see it is moved from its default position. The button has come. So effectively, what happens is when we change something to absolute, the element gets aligned with respect to the screen now. with respect to the corners of the screen. That's top, bottom, left, and right. So we have to specify one out of top and bottom to specify where the element should be, and one out of left and right. And absolute basically means wherever we specify, it will exactly be there. So for example, if I say that the element should be 500 pixels from the top and 400 pixels from the left, then I can specify it like this. And now what will happen is you will see that the paragraph moves away from the screen or from the current position, and it is applicable in a position where it is 500 pixels from the top and it is 400 pixels from the left. This is absolute, right? So absolute again means wherever we specify it to be exactly, the element will be there only. That is the absolute position. Okay. So static is the default position. Absolute is where we specify the element to be. Right? That makes it the absolute position. The third value that we have is called relative. Now, relative position basically means the element will move relative to its current position. So let me zoom in and explain this to you. So let us say that this is the current position of the element. I will mark it over here. Now, relative position basically would mean or indicate that the position that the element moves from its current position, where it was actually supposed to be basically from its static position, it will move. So if I specify, let's say top 100 pixels and left 150 pixels, then the element will actually move 100 pixels from its current position, not from the top of the screen, right? So unlike absolute, where the measurement is done from the screen border, in the case of relative, it is done from its current position. So if the static position of the element is here, then this is now 100 pixels. And if the static position of the element is here, for example, then this is now 150 pixels, right? So in the case of relative, the element moves relative from its static position or relatively from where it was supposed to be. In the case of absolute, the element moves from the screen. That's the top, left, and right, 0, 0. Right? So again, absolute, it moves with respect to the screen. Relative, it moves with respect to where it was originally supposed to be. Right? Now, by default, when the element is absolute, it will scroll away with the screen. Right? So let me show you an example. Let me just add a bunch of paragraphs and I'll just copy paste this, let's say 5, 6 times. I just want to create enough content so that we are able to scroll down. So now the content, yes, that makes sense. The styling is getting applied to the entire thing. So let me change it. I will use header space P. So it will only apply to one paragraph, which is inside the header. Yes. Now, as you can see, let me also add a background color so it becomes visible to us. So let's give it a yellow color. Right. So now, as you can see, the default position of the element, right, is too much. Let me move that up top. Done. So now you will see that when I start scrolling down on the screen, the element will move away. If you see, this is our paragraph. This is absolute position, which means it also gets priority over all other element. It shows up at the top, right? So you can see the other paragraph is under it. It has been hidden under it. So when we give absolute position, that element also is brought up at the top in terms of the 3D position. If you see, it is at the top of everything else, right? But then again, my point is when we scroll down, you can see the element scrolls away with the screen. It does not stay fixed in one location. It scrolls away with the screen, right? So this is absolute. If we change this, the same setup, if I just use another word called fixed instead of absolute, then the difference will be this. You can see the rest of the screen scrolls away, but this element is fixed in that location on the screen throughout. So typically when you see chatbots on the bottom right, they are constantly on the screen. We see social media banners, social media icons, advertisements that are constantly on the screen. Navigation bar is constantly on the screen. That happens with the fixed position. That happens using the fixed position or sticky, which I will show you next. But anyway, this is how the setup is, right? So what we do here is we have 5 different types of positions. The first one is static, that is the default value. Then absolute. So absolute basically means that the element will show up where we specify it and it will move away with the screen. So it will be there at that part of the screen and move away when we scroll. Then comes fixed. which is that the element will actually be fixed on the screen no matter what happens to the rest of the screen. So even if you scroll down, the fixed element will stay there. On the other hand, finally, we have relative. So relative would be that the element is relative to its current position. So if the element was initially supposed to be here, from this position, it is then moved across the screen, not from the actual window position, right? So this is relative, and these are the four different types of positioning values that we have seen. Now, before we discuss, let me also quickly discuss static, and then I'll give you a challenge, right? So now let's move to static. Now, the difference between, again, static is actually that it takes the value of absolute and fixed. So it shuffles between absolute and fixed. So if I specify, let's say 10 pixels, this is not working as expected. One second. It's not needed. Let's take an example. So static position CSS. I'm probably missing something over there. So basically what static does is it will switch between absolute and fixed. So it will switch between relative and fixed. So let me quickly find it. So I look for MDN and let's try to find an example if we can for sticky. I think we have put this up. So this is basically what sticky is, as you can see, right? When we scroll down, it will stick to the screen. But when we come back to its position, it will go back to its original position. So it basically is that. And we have written exactly that. Not sure why it is not working. Let me change the value and see. For some reason, this is not working. It could also be a browser support issue. Some browsers do support it, some browsers don't support it. So that can also be the thing. But yes, it could be that either as well. But either way, right, the point is that the value sticky will basically switch between static or relative. And yes, that's the problem. I have not written sticky here. I've written static. Now this should be fine. Let's check. There you go. So this is now working fine, right? And this will stay that way until and unless this condition is satisfied. Right? So if I just put say 100 pixels at the top, then you can see it will switch. You can see now it starts getting permanent on the screen. Right? If you notice the change carefully, once we reach the condition, which is at the top is 20 pixels, right? Then it will start behaving like a sticky or a fixed item. So this is how the setup is, right? So that's the way sticky works. So these are the five different position values that we have: static, absolute, relative, fixed, and sticky. Now, I will give you a task here, and what you have to do is create a chatbot, create a WhatsApp chatbot, right? Which is available at the bottom right and directs to a WhatsApp chat when clicked. So this is a quick challenge for you. We'll come back in a few minutes, but this is a quick challenge for you so that you can actually try this out. So I leave the code on the screen for you to refer in terms of the position. But yes, so you have to create a WhatsApp chatbot, which is available at the bottom right. And the more important part is it should redirect to a valid chat when we click on it. Let me show you an example. So if I go to the website here, and if I switch to the mobile view, then I should be able to see the WhatsApp icon in the mobile view. Let's see. Yes, you can see the WhatsApp icon shows up on the bottom right. So this is what I want you to create. It should be available on a normal desktop view. You don't have to customize it for a mobile view. But just like this, I want a WhatsApp icon on the bottom right. And then once I click on it, it should take me to a valid WhatsApp chat. So you can see when we click on it, it actually opens or tells us it wants to open the WhatsApp application. So this is the logic that I want you to figure out. So yes, that's the challenge for you. I'll give you a few minutes for this. I'll also quickly break my fast and then come back, right? So yes, I will leave the CSS along with the challenge on the screen. All the best. Do give this a try. I will come back and then I will show you the solution to this. And then if you have any further questions on the project, we can take it. For people who are asking about the topic of the session, again, as always, like every session, the topic is available right here on the top of VS Code. So yes, that is the topic for the day. If you want to take it, you can refer to that thing, right? So yes, let's come back and continue. Until then, do try this out. It's going to be interesting. So try to find a WhatsApp icon from Google, WhatsApp image from Google, put it on the screen on the bottom right, and then try to attach that functionality to it. All right. Hi guys. So we are back. So yes, first of all, let me know in the chat if you were able to finish off the task that I gave you, which is creating this WhatsApp chatbot thing for a desktop or for your website. So put a yes in the chat if you were able to do it. And if yes, then also let me know which of these position styles do we need to use. Do we use static or relative or sticky? Which out of these position values can we use for this particular scenario? Let me go ahead and show you how to implement this. So first of all, I'm going to find a WhatsApp image. So I'll just look for that on Google. So I'll just try to find a WhatsApp icon and I'll go to images. And there are a lot of them. We want one which is hopefully transparent. So let's try to find a transparent one. I think this one, you can see it's a transparent one. So right click and save image as. Again, if you remember, I told you that ideally we should try to use a local image as much as possible, right? So let's call it chatbot.png. That's the name I have used to save that image, right? Now let us go back to our code. First off, of course, we have to add it HTML. Now it doesn't really matter where we add it in the HTML because anyway, we are going to custom position it, right? So it doesn't really matter where we add it, but let me add it at the bottom right or at the bottom. So this will be an image tag, source equal to chatbot.png and alt is chatbot done. Now let's see if it shows up. Yes, it does. It is not transparent, but it's fine. This will do. So we can of course quickly give it an ID of chatbot and we can style it. Now, what are the styles that we need? Well, first of all, since it's an ID, we should use hash. Then the next thing is reduce the height, I think. So let's reduce it to about 100 pixels. The width will automatically be reduced. I think this is still big. Let's go for 70 pixels. This looks okay to me because the page is zoomed in right now. So this is the actual size. So I think 70 looks good. Then let me go ahead and use a position. So we'll use which position we'll use fixed because we want it to be at a custom position throughout, even when we scroll. So that's why we can use position fixed. Now, as soon as we do this, it will move away from its current position. As you can see, the elements are hovering over it, right? So it is moved away from its expected position on the screen. Now we can go ahead and specify the bottom 100 pixels and then right 100 pixels so that it moves to the bottom right, as you can see. And I think this is too much. So maybe 50 pixels on both sides should do it. All right. And then let me just zoom in and that's it. There you go. You can see it works. Right? It is now fixed on the screen on the bottom right. This is exactly what we wanted in terms of position. If you remember, there was a second challenge I gave you, which is to make it clickable. So for that, obviously, we have to wrap it up in a link, right? So ahref. And then the link actually is a very interesting thing. I wanted to share this with you guys as well because it might help you in a project. Maybe is that we can actually use the WA. So that's HTTPS colon WA.me slash. And then following this, we can enter a valid WhatsApp number. So this link will actually trigger a connection, as you will see, to the WhatsApp API. And you can see it allows us to open the app directly. So if that person has a WhatsApp web installed on the system or a WhatsApp application installed on the system, then they can directly open it up. So you can see this is how we can connect, right? So again, the syntax for this is the link should be wa.me. So that's WhatsApp me and then followed by the number. So this is the URL you can use again tomorrow in the future. If you make any project, you can use this URL to open WhatsApp or to connect to WhatsApp behind the scenes. Right? So that way you can open WhatsApp and you should be able to directly get it. If this is on a mobile phone, it will open the WhatsApp app on the mobile phone. And on a laptop, it will try to take you to install WhatsApp, or if it is already installed, it will open that up. But on the phone, it will directly open the WhatsApp app itself, right? So yes, this is the setup for that. I hope it makes sense. And this was the positioning part as well in terms of CSS. So again, I've shown you 5 different types of CSS values for positioning: static, which is the default one; relative. As you can see, this image is very interesting. So relative very clearly specifies that the image or the element moves with respect to where it is initially supposed to be, right? So the initial position is this box and then it moves relative to that initial position. So that's relative. Then we have absolute. So absolute is again with respect to the screen and it moves away on scroll. Fixed is again with respect to the screen and you can see it does not move away with the scroll. So this is a very good indication. This image is actually a very good indication. I intentionally put it. It explains these values really well. So yes, that's the positioning bit that we have with CSS, right? Perfect. The next topic, I think that will pick up some advanced selectors. Now I will not demonstrate, I will quickly demonstrate these to you, but I'll not go into a lot of detail, right? So let me quickly show these to you, and then we'll move to questions that you might, if you have any regarding the projects, right? So let me quickly demonstrate. The first selector, descendant selector, I've already used it before. If you notice, when we were working with the paragraph, I've actually used this descendant selector, that is header space P. So space will basically select an element within header. And if you just hover over it, it will also show this to you up top. You can see there is outside and then the P element is inside it. And there could be any other elements in between. It doesn't really matter. As long as there is a paragraph which is inside a header, it will get selected, right? So in our index.html, we can see there is exactly one paragraph inside the header. So this is the header, and inside that there is exactly one paragraph. Now it doesn't really matter where the P is. It could be the first element, last element, in the middle, like we have here. It will still work. So this is the descendant selector. As long as there is a paragraph within a header, it will get selected, right? Then we have two other types of selectors. So the second one is a plus selector, right? So if I choose header plus P, then if you hover over it, you can see it will select all paragraphs that are directly after a header, right? So we call this the adjacent sibling selector, which is that the paragraph immediately next to header will get selected. So if we see our output now, I don't think there is any paragraph like that. We haven't put in any styles for it yet. Let's put a yellow there as well. And let me just highlight this for now. So you can see the first paragraph after the header got selected, right? So this is the header, of course, these three things till the button. So this is adjacent sibling, the first paragraph immediately after the header that got selected. So that is how we can utilize this descendant selector or sibling selector. So we call this one adjacent sibling selector, right? Then there is another thing called greater than. So if instead of plus I put greater than P, then you can see it will choose a paragraph directly inside the header. So in our case, again, this is the first paragraph in the header. So that will get selected. And this is the setup. So these are three advanced selectors. And then we also have something called this tilde one. So this will choose all paragraphs after the header. You can see it chooses all paragraphs, or it selects all paragraphs after the header. So again, it could be slightly confusing, but we have 4 or 5 different options to select exactly what we want, right? If I quickly give you a recap, here the first one is the descendant selector, which looks like this. So header space P, this selects all paragraphs inside the header. Then we have header greater than P. This will select only the first paragraph inside the header, and only the first paragraph immediately inside the header. Then we have header plus P. This will select the paragraph immediately after the header, after, not inside, but after or under, after the header. And then we have the tilde operator. So this is the left of one key above the tab key on the keyboard. This special character, we call it a tilde sign. This is the term that we use for it. It's called a tilde operator. So this is used to select all children, all siblings, basically. So every paragraph after the header, as long as there's any paragraph on the screen after the header, under the header, not inside, after the header, that will get selected, right? So these are some of the advanced selectors. Again, I've also mentioned them here. As you can see, descendant selector, child selector, adjacent sibling, and general sibling. In addition to this, we have certain other selectors that are also available when it comes to attributes specifically. So for example, let us say that we have a form field, right? Let us make a form field up top. Let's say input type equal to text. And now if we want to style this input particularly specifically, then we can actually select it like this. So we can specify, for example, input, and we can specify attribute like this. So this is will only choose that particular input which is of the type text. You can see element type equal to text. We don't even have to write input. This will only choose that element where type equal to text attribute is available. And here we can say, for example, let's say border 2 pixels solid blue, and then let's put a border radius of 20 pixels, just so that we can visually distinguish the input field. And you can see now the input field looks much different than the normal one. Right? So the normal input field, if I remove the styling, you will be able to see this is the normal input field. And then of course we have styled it. So we have styled it and made it different. Now, obviously, this is how we can use any attribute. So if you want to choose an image based on the alt attribute, so we can specify alt is equal to, let's say, chatbot. If you remember, this is our image, right? We have used a chatbot where alt is chatbot. So we have to be careful with the actual term, right? And then whatever style we write here, let's say we put margin, it will not work on the chatbot though. But let's say we put width 100 pixels, then it will apply it to that image. You can see, and the image gets distorted. So this is applying to that image because this attribute satisfies that condition. Image, the element will be replaced by image. So image has an alt of attribute of alt equal to chatbot. Right? So this is another advanced selector called attribute selector. Then we have some other classes as well, like hover and pseudo element selector. So again, in the case of a link, let us say that we have a link that we are hovering upon. So let me put another link. Let's say this part of the paragraph, this lorem ipsum part becomes a link. Okay, let me put an empty link there for now. So if we just check the output, now you will see this blue one. This is what we're talking about right now, this blue link. Now, this is currently the default styling. What we can do is we can actually style it to change the hover. So we can target the link inside the paragraph. So that's PA. Then the condition is hover. Now, what we want to do is we want to change the color, for example, to red. For example, it's just an example. So now what will happen is you can see as soon as you hover over that link, the color changes to red. The color becomes red. So that is another interesting style that we can apply. Now, a link actually has several different styles as well. So for example, we also have something called active. Then we also have something called selected. So we have several different things, visited, unvisited. All of these things are also there for a link, right? So unvisited and then link is the default one. So these are some of the different values that we can style. Active is when we press and hold it. So right now, this is active when I am pressing and holding it. So if I change the color to green in the styling, for example, let us change the color to green, right? So when we change it to green, then what will happen is when the link is active, so which means when I am holding onto the link, it will become green. You can see now it is green. As long as I'm holding it, it is green. As soon as it goes back to blue. On hover, it is red. And then when I drag it or hold it, it is green. Right? So those are some of the different attributes that we have for the link, right? So similarly, we have attributes for some other elements as well. For example, for input, we have focus. For all elements, we have focus, hover. If you want to change the background color of the paragraph on hover, we can do that. For example, if we, 1 second. Right, so if you go to P and then change the hover and then add a background color of pink, for example, then whenever I hover over a paragraph, you will see the background color will turn pink, right? So again, these are some advanced CSS styles. These are called pseudo selectors. You can see wherever I'm hovering over a paragraph, it is turning pink. So that's the pseudo selector for that. Finally, we have a special selector as well. For example, first letter. So then we can style it. Let's say font size 50 pixels. So this will apply, as you can see, only to the first letter of the paragraph. So the L in all of these paragraphs gets a special style. Similarly, we have first line, right? So this will be only the first line gets affected. So there are all of these other advanced CSS selectors, which are called pseudo element selector, pseudo class selector. All of these things are available in CSS as well, right? So these are some advanced CSS selectors that we have discussed. We primarily use these four. Out of these four also, we use descendant selector the most. So this space selector, this is the one you will use the most. Maybe occasionally you use child, adjacent sibling. Attribute again sometimes, especially when working with form fields or input fields. And then pseudo element, we typically never use it, very rarely, but then again, they are available. So in case you need them, you can definitely use them, right? So this is where I would like to stop in terms of the content discussion for today. And now let us take questions that you have in the chat, that you might have in the chat. So let me go through the chat questions one by one. I leave the repository link on the screen as always. The session topic, before you ask me again and again, the topic of today's session is revision session 3. So this is the topic name, session title, whatever you want to call it. It is revision session 3, as you can see on the screen. So please note this down. I will not be answering this question again later. The topic, title, name of today's session is revision session 3. Perfect. Now I'm going back to the repository link. I'll just let this be on the screen, and I'm starting with Zoom chat, and then I will come back to the YouTube live chat once this is done. I don't have access to WhatsApp links, Shalini. I'm really sorry. I can't really help you with those because again, the groups are college wise and there are so many colleges. So I don't have a list. Please drop an email to the support team that is again available to you, right? So if you visit the repository over here, I think in the first link, there is an email link mentioned. This is the one, IIDT-team@blackbox.me. So please send an email to this link and the team will help you out no matter what issue you have regarding WhatsApp group joining or any other issue. Please drop an email to this particular mail ID. Okay, and the team will help you out. Little bit confusion about difference between schema and code, React, Mongo, Express, and what else we need to complete the project. Gyaneshwari, it's very simple. We are discussing MERN. That's the MERN stack. So we have MongoDB, Express, React, and Node. Node.js is not code. So we have MongoDB, Express, and React. These are the three technologies that we write code for. Again, to maybe help you with that confusion or clear it out for you, I have made 3 separate projects. One project on React.js, one project on Express.js, one project. Let me share the screen actually. Yes. So I was telling you, I have made 3 projects. One project on React so that you understand exactly what React is for. One project on Express so that you understand exactly what Express.js code is for. And one project on MongoDB so that you understand where MongoDB fits in. MongoDB basically is just the database. So all the database related code, for example, connecting to database, creating schema, inserting value, fetching value, updating value, deleting value, all those database related things, they are MongoDB. Express code is where we will have all the functionality and logic. So the app.listen, port number specification, all of that is Express. And React is all the UI and front-end logic. So all your components, HTML, CSS, all that code, that will be inside React or that will be written in React. So these are the 3 different technologies and that's the idea. Coming to the schema concept, schema is specifically a part of MongoDB. It is neither associated with Express nor it is associated with React. Schema is associated only with the database, that is only with MongoDB. Again, if you go to the MongoDB video or if you go to session 20 where we have written the MongoDB code, you will find a schema sample over there. So this is the schema. But this entire thing is Express code, out of which the database related part, for example, inserting database, connecting to database, making the schema, this is MongoDB. So MongoDB code is written within Express. Express is our backend. So Express contains other things in addition to the database connectivity, right? So again, schema is one tiny part of the database code. The database code will in turn contain model also. It will in turn contain the code for creation of new values, insertion, updation, deletion, connecting to database. All that will be your database code. And then everything put together, the entire backend will be Express. So I hope this is clear. And similarly, if you go to a React application or a full stack example, then you will understand the role of the React code over there as well. So let us go to the final code, for example, the full stack project that I've added. So the front end folder is entirely React. And within backend, you will have schema, you will have MongoDB, you will have Express. So again, I have written some examples in some places. You can find a bunch of template code available in the repository. So I hope I've answered that question for everybody. I hope there is no confusion between schema, DB code, project code, all of that anymore. Uday, please upload MongoDB code. I will ask the team to change that from SQL to MongoDB because we are using MongoDB as a database. So no matter what you see on top, the code that we are writing is MongoDB. Not write SQL code because we have not covered in the course, in the sessions, right? So I hope I have answered that as well. Again, so Divya, and for everybody else who is asking, what do you have to upload in DB schema? Like I showed you just now, you have to write a code like this, similar to what I have just shown you. Again, I will show this to you one more time. Again, I have explained this in the video also. Please watch the MongoDB reference to understand schema in more detail. But this code you have to submit for schema. By this code, I mean code for every entity in your project. So for example, if it is an e-commerce website, you will have user, you will have product, you will have order, you might have other things like coupon code, discount, etc. So all of them will have their own schema. For example, what will be the different values for the user? Well, username, address, phone number, user image. Maybe they have a card saved like credit card, debit card, something like that. So all of that will be a part of the user schema. Then you will have product. So for product, you will have product image, product name, product title, description, price, offer applicable, quantity, stock available, yes, no. All of these values will go for the product schema. Similarly, you will have order schema. Similarly, you might have coupon code. So you have to create a schema for the coupon code as well. So basically for every entity, every individual database item that you will have in your project, you have to create a schema for every item. So you will have 6, 7, 8, 10 schemas that you will submit. It will not be a single schema. It will be at least 6 to 7 schemas or at least 4, 5 schemas, depending on what are all the different entities that you have in your project. For example, if it's a book, let's say a bookstore application, then you will have a store schema, book schema, user schema. Again, so you will have 4, 5, 6 different schemas and you have to write it in this way. So you have to submit 5, 6 schemas. So this is one schema, order schema. So this much is the order schema. Similarly, you will write user schema, product schema, coupon code schema, etc. So all the applicable entities and you will submit that. So I hope that all your schema questions are now answered. And again, in terms of submission, you can either submit a JavaScript file. So this is in a JavaScript file. As you can see, right, this is index.js. So you can either submit a JavaScript file or you can just copy this in a Word document. That will also work. You can submit a PDF. That will also work. You can submit a normal text file. That will also work. As long as you submit 5 or 6, whatever is applicable for your project, a few different schemas, the format of the file will not really matter. It could be any text format. So TXT, Word document, PDF, JS, any of that will work. Ideally, you will have to make it in JavaScript only. So ideally JS would be preferred. But again, since I will just quickly check the schemas in this case, you can submit any file format as long as it's a text file. So you can copy this like 5, 6 schemas and submit. Okay. Yes, Ganeshwari. So at the end of the day, your schema, DB code and Express code, all of them will be in a single file or in one backend folder. And front end will contain React code. That is correct. Okay, done. Divya, I've already answered your question. I have told you that there is a schema sample in the repository also. There is a schema sample in the YouTube video also. Please refer to them and you can then create one. And you can submit any of the formats, text, PDF, Word document, JavaScript file. As long as it is a valid text document, you can submit it, no problem. Now coming to YouTube, okay, there's nothing in the YouTube live as such, so no problem. Done. Yes, Sandeep, to answer your question, you actually have to write about, so in the program book, you have to talk about the session details, right? So whatever happens in the session topic wise. So yes, you have to write about the project that you will be creating, not full stack development in general. So you can mention that this was a revision session like so and so, and then you actually talk about the project that you are building or creating. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Again, Hari Hara Reddy, this is YouTube Live. I have said this in the beginning of the session also. I am telling this again also. Out of every single project topic that has been given to you, there is no project which will not require a database. Okay, there is no project in the list of project topics that have been given to you where you will not need a database. You need a database for every single project title that we have given to you. Okay, so it is impossible that your project will not require a backend. It is impossible that your project will not require a database. You will need database, you will need backend. Okay, so you have to make all three things, front end also, backend also, and database also. Okay. So Divya, you can ignore that. If you have already submitted the abstract once, please don't submit it again. It might have probably been shared so that people who are missing, who have not submitted the abstracts yet, they submit it. But if you have submitted it once, then it's fine. We have received it. This is for everybody. If you have submitted the abstract once, it is fine. You don't have to resubmit it again. I think the notification might have been sent out for people who did not submit the abstract yet, right? So that's the idea. And again, so Divya, don't worry about the assignments for now. Start working on the project. You only have some 24 days left. It will take a lot of time. So again, I recommend this to everybody, right? Try to start working on the project as soon as you can. Okay. And you can finish it off soon. Yes, Uday, you can have the DB schema extend to as many pages as you want. There is no restriction to that. So it can be 3, 4, 5 pages as well, depending on however many different entities you have. You can take up as much text space as you want. So there is no limit as such, page limit or word limit for the schema. It could be as long as you want it to be. Right, perfect. So I think those are all the questions in the chat. Thank you so much, guys, for attending. I hope this makes sense. And again, I recommend, it is a request for all of you to please go to the repository, and before you start working on anything, please spend some time watching these 3 videos, right? These 3, 4 videos. You should definitely watch them before you start working. So all of these questions that you're having right now, what is schema, what is code, what is React, what is Express, all of those questions will be answered very clearly, and you will get a good revision also of all the concepts once you visit the first 4 videos. The 5th one is optional. You don't have to actually deploy this, but since it was related, I thought it would be better to create it. But these 4 videos are recommended, especially before you work on the schema. Definitely watch the MongoDB video so that you understand what a schema is. Either the video or the recording, either one of them. You can either watch the MongoDB session recording or watch the MongoDB reference video, right? So that you understand what a schema is properly, and then you create it. Okay. Don't Google random things. Don't go to ChatGPT, randomly search for something and upload it. If it is not valid schema, it will be rejected, right? So please be very careful when you submit things. Make sure you submit them once and submit them properly. Okay. It should be a working thing. It should not be something, that is just there. Just copy paste it from the internet. In one glance, I can tell you whether it is working or not, right? So please make sure that whatever you upload is properly working. Okay, done. I'm asking the team to share the feedback link as well. Just a second. So it's already been shared on Zoom. You can definitely, so people on Zoom, you can definitely just fill that in. Make sure you fill the feedback as well. I've asked the team to share the link on YouTube as well. So in just a minute, that will be shared as well. And yes, that is it for this one. Thank you so much, you guys, for attending. I hope this makes sense. Definitely check out these videos so that most of your questions, I've tried to answer or resolve most of your questions in those, right? And yes, that is it for the session. Let's connect again on Friday. Sorry, I think today is Friday. Let's connect again on Monday and go from there. Abdul, the DB schema submission is due by Monday. So try to finish it off by Monday so that we can start on the next part of the project from then. Right? Done. So yes, have a great day. See you guys on Monday. Bye-bye.